After the rampant success of my last video, people have been asking me to make a video discussing Hong Kong for some reason. Perhaps they really like the smell of industry and overpopulation. And I guess that you know that that's what this video is already about, given that you've read the title. If you didn't, why are you here? Literally, there's so much more you could be doing with your life. Go outside or something. In order to understand what is happening in Hong Kong, we must first understand how Hong Kong was created. And to do this, I have looked at a number of very reputable sources and historical films to improve my knowledge. Some people will try to tell you a long story about opium wars, a dynastic legacy that goes back 6,000 years. But ignore all that, I know better than them. There's already a series of films that charts the birth of Hong Kong, and the clue was in the name all along. Kong. Hong Kong. King Kong, of course. It all makes sense now. Hong Kong was the birthplace of King Kong's great-grandfather. The Kongs come from a respectable line of genetically engineered super gorillas that are basically a joke that God played on mankind. Each Kong was named phonetically after the next letter of the alphabet. There's Hong Kong, Yong Kong, Jong Kong. We don't talk about Donkey Kong. King Kong used to be called Kong Kong, and everyone took the piss out of him because this name is quite frankly ridiculous, until he decided he would take hostages, kidnap a woman to own the libs, and the feminists had him shot for advanced misogyny. With the Simian Menace out of the way, a tale that would later be adapted into the world-renowned sci-fi saga Star Wars, all to set up the best film of all time, the Chinese quietly invaded and set up a city-state that will eventually become the setting of almost every espionage deal and conflict in the dystopian cyberpunk future that awaits us all. Most people know that Hong Kong was given to the British on a 99-year lease in 1898, but what people don't know is why. There are many theories, and it's clear that nobody really knows. How do I know this? Well, because the Wikipedia article has decided to omit this information, and I am far too lazy to read books. My theory is that Hong Kong could have been won in an international game of Monopoly that got out of hand, and instead of ending with the usual outcome of stabbing family members, burning the house down and starting a war, China just gifted the UK a small island nation because it was preferable to us deploying tactical British SEALs. Not the Navy SEALs, that's just for Yanks. Actual SEALs that we train off the coast of Scotland on a diet of pure haggis and granite shavings. They say that a single SEAL with a bayonet can hold off at least 30 Frenchmen. This is, of course, pure propaganda on my part. We are instead training penguins in the Falkland Islands that can wear rocket launchers and fly. This was leaked in an advanced combat training simulator in 2000, but thankfully no one wanted to play it. I say Hong Kong could have been won in a game of Monopoly because the reality is no one had invented Monopoly in 1898. What actually happened was the ambassador to China said, "Hey, our empire thing is going pretty well. Your medieval dynasty simulator looks like complete and total ass. Seriously, it's a miracle you're a world power at all. Your mum gay. Also, we have a navy." And in a fit of rage, the Chinese chairman Liu Shaoqi, yes, the Chinese chairman is timeless, an endless entity who controls all of China, gave the UK an island and said, "If capitalism is so great, why don't you turn this piece of crap into a functioning economy?" The British thought this was great, but unfortunately for them, the barristers of the time didn't read the small print in the contract that said, "Hey, after 100 years, we're totally going to take this laissez-faire experimental utopia away from you, so we can rule it with an iron fist. Sorry, no take-backsies." But I'm getting ahead of myself. When the British took over Hong Kong, it was, unfortunately, a bit of a shithole, but the same could be said for most of the world at that point, so that was no different to anywhere else. The British decided the first thing to do would be to open a university, because the colony was distinctly lacking feminist dance therapists, some equestrian psychology graduates, and bowling industry managers. Yes, these are all courses you can do at university. And they hoped a university would attract them. And so it did. From all over the world, feminist dance tutors flocked from as far away as Swansea, and bowling alley managers from as close as Kent. They aimed to bring the healing power of dance and knocking pins down with heavy balls to Hong Kong. After a while, though, the market became saturated with graduates, and they all went on strike in 1925 to protest their low wages. These strikes were called Canton Hong Kong strikes. You may have heard of them. They were called this because the dancers in particular were trained in a Cantonese style. It had no relation to the massacre of Chinese protesters by the British Empire that happened around the same time. Totally unrelated, promise. But it worked, and the protesters were once again happy. And nothing really happened then for a while, and then because there was a really terrible Charlie Chaplin impressionist causing trouble in Europe with his rip-off films in the 40s, the Japanese decided to kill all his backup dancers, and the most dancers were located in, you guessed it, Hong Kong, baby. So that happened. It turned out that the dancers actually held back quite a lot of the economy though, because whilst they were good dancers, they were really insufferable as people. Hong Kong rapidly industrialized, looking forward to going back to China and showing how their way was not only more efficient and better than a communist way, but full of improvements and advice which the Chinese would surely be both receptive and happy to receive. And oh no. Oh dear.